Chess friends, I hope you are doing well, and today I am back with my new version named Stockfish 18 Beta. I am going to illustrate a mind-blowing and astonishing chess game that I played with my challenger, Blackfish. It's been a long time since I uploaded any chess videos, but from today, I will upload regular chess videos on my channel. You can visit my Rama chess website to access my chess games, so stay tuned until the end of the video, and let's get started without wasting any time. I started the game with e4. My challenger played c6 to deploy the Caro-Can, and we have c4 to dominate over the d5 square, where the knight can move back behind the pawn, and the rook can go to c1 to get access to the c-file in the future, and the queen gets an open diagonal. Alright, we have d6, my challenger goes for a small center where the bishop is getting blocked, and he will play g6 to put the bishop on the g7 square, dominating over the center. Therefore, we have d4 because I want to dominate over the center with my 3 pawns. Whenever you get the opportunity to dominate, why wouldn't you? The queen goes here to improve its position, where knight to d7 can be possible, and his plan and strategy are to play rook to d8 in the future. In a few moves, we have g6 because the bishop wants to go to the g7 square, right? Now, here I played a crazy move against my challenger, and that is f4. This f4 move is very crucial because the queen is on the c7 square. It cannot go to h4 anymore to check my king, which is why I pushed forward my 4 Alexander armies to dominate over the center and paralyze the whole board. In a few moves, the octopus knight came to f3 to improve its position in the center, and you can see that the center is just occupied by my armies. Therefore, bishop to g4 came on the board to pin down the knight. The bishop goes here, and we have e6. This e6 move improves black's position and also stabilizes the knights to go to the 7th rank. Alright. I have my pieces very frequently activated, where I can push forward, develop my pieces healthily and play rook to f1 after castling to get access to f5. Alright. A few moves later, we have d5 on the board to attack these pawns. Let me remind you, should I capture the pawn, push it forward, or capture the pawn with my c-pawn? First of all, I should not capture the d-pawn with my c-pawn because it will open up black's queen position. Additionally, I cannot capture the d-pawn with my e-pawn, because I don't want to lose any center pawns. That's the reason why I decided to push forward my pawn to the e5 square, because the e5 square pawn dominates over the dark squares and also blocks the dark square bishop. I have the possibility of putting my knight on the d6 square, and that's Garry Kasparov's octopus knight, which will be a nightmare for black's king position, just like he did in his former world championship game against Anatoly Karpov, I think. So, at this point, as my pawns are dominating over the dark squares, black decided to capture the pawn on c4. A few moves later, I decided to play h3, attacking the bishop, and the bishop should not go to f5 because there is g4. By the way, chess friends, if you would like to access my chess games that were played on my channel, you can access this game too on my ramachess.com. I will provide a link in the description. Alright, you can see that I captured the bishop with my rook because I want to double up my rooks on the f-file to push forward the pawn on f5 to attack these pawns, since my light square bishop's diagonal is there to attack f7, where knight to e4 can be possible to occupy the dark squares, right? Therefore, Blackfish dares to consider knight to b6 to attack the bishop, and he wants to deflect my bishop from attacking the pawn. Therefore, I played bishop to b3, maintaining pressure on the pawn indirectly. Additionally, my knight can go to e4 to dominate over the d6 square, and I can break the center open by playing d5 or f5 moves in the future. The knight comes to the f5 square to attack the bishop. As the bishop moves back, here is a question for you: should you castle? Because it's been a long time since you castled. If you dare to castle on the short side, then you will lack some advantages because I will play knight to e4 to dominate over the dark squares. As soon as the rook comes here, g4 will arrive to attack the knight. The knight has to move back and I will put my knight on the d6 square. I will even play queen d2, move the rook here, and you can play king to h1. This way, I will gain some advantages in this position. So, going back to the position, playing castle will lack development, therefore, your dark square bishop will be very blocked and suffocated on the king side, therefore, we have h5 on the board because it wants to prevent me from playing g4. Castling is not so good because he has a better opportunity to play bishop f8 to seize control over the diagonal, where c5 can be possible, therefore, we have rook to c1 to get access to this file, where knight to b5 can be possible to attack the queen. The queen goes here, and we have g3 to protect the pawn, the bishop goes back to f8. The challenger, Blackfish, wants to play very well because he doesn't want to lose against the Stockfish 18 beta version. My Stockfish 18 beta version is just mind-blowing because it is surprising. A few moves later, I can push forward my pawn to g4, and the knight moves back. We have some kind of repetitive moves because Blackfish actually does not have any good moves to consider, which is why he is just moving his knight back and forth. Here we have knight to c4, a few moves later, we have knight to e4. It looks like my position is getting better with each move, but it is not actually. The problem for me is that while I have greater piece movement and frequent coordination with my bishop, rook and all my pieces together, Black's position is very strong due to his pawn structure. The Black king is also very safe in his home square, the knight is controlling these squares, and a few moves later, as the knight moves back and bishop f3 comes on the board, the position is good for Black, but here, Black played a small mistake by considering king to f8. This king f8 move means Black will not be able to castle in the future. The king becomes fragile due to Blackfish, and there I get the opportunity to consider g4 to attack the pawn. Here is a question for you: should you capture the pawn on g4? Let me show you the variation. If you dare to do that, then after the capture happens, a6 will follow in the game, the rook will go to the h1 square, and after the rook exchanges occur, the king goes here to secure his kingside, the bishop will go to the g3 square, and after the knight moves back, I will consider queen to h2, and you can see that this file will be dominated by the queen, where my knight can go to the dark squares to haunt you on the h7 square. Therefore, after the knight moves, bishop h4 follows in the game. I need to eliminate the dark square bishop for my knight's better use on the g5 square, ensuring my knight faces no obstacles in its path. Therefore, after the exchange of bishops, queen to e7 will follow to eliminate the queen, which is supported by the knight. After the queen moves back, the king goes here, and rook to h8 will be a threat by Blackfish. It looks like my position becomes fragile and therefore, I need to slide my king or queen, but hold on. I have something special for you, and that move is f5. This f5 move is very critical because I will play f6 to dominate your king and queen, right? Therefore, after the exchanges occur, I still possess the threat of playing f6 and you need to act. Even if you dare to capture the pawn on the f5 square, the g file will be wide open, and that's how I will gain advantages by moving back my bishop and sacrificing my knight on the e4 square. This is a very romantic sacrifice because after you capture, I will play rook g3 check, the king has to hide and queen to h8 will lead to checkmate. The position is just over, right? So, let me share an inspirational quote in sudden with you. Unconditional love is when someone hurts you, but because you care about that person so much, you choose not to hurt them in return. So, going back to the reason, the pawn cannot be captured, therefore, after Black plays f6 to block my pawn from going to f6, I will capture the f6 pawn anyway, which is supported by the knight. After the exchanges occur, you cannot capture my knight with your queen because your own knight will be hanging. After you capture it with your king, queen to h4 check will follow, the queen will be under attack, so you have two moves to consider, either g5 or king to f7, but both moves are weak. Let me show you one by one. If you play g5, then I will smash you down by playing queen to h6 check, followed by bishop to h5 check. Furthermore, I will play f6 to attack the queen, and Black's position will be just fragile. He will face malaria on the king side, and the king will feel like mosquitoes are biting under his blanket while he sleeps, making his sleep vulnerable. So, going back to the reason, we discovered that g5 is not possible. Therefore, after the king moves back, f6 g6 follows, attacking the king while also placing the queen under attack. The king cannot go to e6 because rook to e3 check is available. If the king moves to these squares, then queen to h8 will be decisive. The king will suffocate as soon as the bishop goes to the g4 square. The king is left with one square, and then I will consider queen to h2 check. The king, again, is left with one square. And then I will consider bishop to f3 check. The king cannot go there because of rook to e3. After I play queen to c2 check, I assume that black will be checkmated, and I will win again because nobody can defeat me. Stockfish 18 beta is like the upgraded version of Captain America, and the black king will be just punished. So, going back to the reason, we discovered that capturing the pawn on g4 would be a very bad choice after 30 moves. That is my calculation of what will happen after 30 moves in each variation. Therefore, black also sees the moves behind the variations and decides to play king to g8 on the board. The bishop moves here, and the rook goes to the f8 square. Look at the rooks. These two rooks look like two arms of the king standing on each side, and the pawn structure is also protecting the black king well. Now, let's observe how I break open the black king's side and position my pieces to further my attacks. A few moves later, as soon as the knight moves back and we see some piece maneuvering, the f5 pawn move will come in a few moves after I play rook f3, followed by bishop c2. That's exactly what happened in the game. After some pawn exchanges connecting the two rooks, we have bishop to c2 and rook to f3, where f5 is a big threat. Let me show you the variation. Why is the f5 move such a big threat? You may ask me, Stockfish, why do you talk so much in your videos? But I am your teacher, a lecturer. I will say what I like to say. If black plays like a donkey, I will say he is a donkey. I am not a motivational speaker or a humble man. I am AI, the dominator of humans in chess and intelligence. Even if black plays b5, I will consider f5 on the board to attack these pawns and threaten f6. You have to capture it, and after capturing, the f6 move remains a big threat. After all the exchanges occur, the black king will face tremendous problems on these light squares. Therefore, if black plays f6 to stabilize his position, I will capture the pawn anyway, and after the knight captures it, we will have rook to g5 check. The king has to hide, and here I will play my mind-blowing move. Can you guess what it is? The move is just amazing, and that is knight to d6 check. You can see that the black king has literally no squares to go to. The bishop has to capture it, and after that, bishop to g6 check will arrive. The king has no squares to escape. After the king moves, bishop to e8 check will follow, winning the queen for the king, and 69 IQ chess players might decide to sacrifice the king like Vidit Gujarati did against Hikaru Nakamura. Anyway, going back to the position, we discovered that any normal kind of move would be a very bad choice because f5 is coming. Therefore, my challenger decided to play f5 himself. He is a blacksmith copying my name, but he is not a god of chess. Because you played f5, you gave me the opportunity to play en passant. Do you know what en passant is? Search on Google. Don't ask me what en passant is. I get the opportunity to play en passant on the f6 square, and after knight captures the pawn, you may ask me, why didn't black capture the pawn with the bishop? That's a big question, right? I am here to answer it because I am the student of Albert Einstein. If the bishop captures the pawn, it will lose control over the c5 square and I will play knight to c5, dominating over the queen and threatening the pawn on the e6 square, right? That will be a very bad position for you, and if the queen goes back to d8, it cannot go to c7 because of f5 as well. Also, if the queen moves to the e7 square, it will be doomed by the rook's control of the e-file. Therefore, if you decide to move the queen back to c8, I will consider knight takes e6 check, and after the king moves back, the pawn will be captured by the bishop. You can see that I have two connected passed pawns that will swing toward the king side. And my bishop's position will be very good for creating vulnerabilities in black's position. That will be a sweet nightmare for black's king. So, going back to the position, we discovered that capturing the pawn with the bishop would be a very bad choice. That's the reason why we have knight takes f6 in this position, because the knight cannot go to c5 due to the bishop's attack. Therefore, I decided to capture the knight on f6, and after the bishop captured it, attacking the pawn, I played g5 on the board, directly attacking the bishop. After the bishop moved back, I played my 5000 elo brilliant move. Can you guess what it was? The brilliant move I played here was pawn to a5, a highly advantageous move because it sacrifices the pawn, but also gives me the opportunity to consider bishop to e5 check, which will win the rook. Some players might think if bishop takes g5 because they are just human literature players, their brains are only useful for solving math problems where 2 plus 2 equals 5. Their idea is that if bishop to e5 check happens, they can block it with bishop to f6, but is that so? Let me play bishop to e5 check, and chess players might be glad to respond with bishop to f6, ha ha ha. I blocked the bishop's check. But hold on, you are playing against Stockfish, the god of chess. I will capture the pawn on e6, attacking the queen. After you capture it, I will take the bishop on f6, now your queen will be under attack, and your king will also be under attack at the same time. The game will be over for you. So, we discovered that capturing the pawn on g5 would be a very bad choice. That's the reason why we have pawn takes f5, followed by bishop to e5 check, attacking the king. The bishop cannot block on f6, and after the king moves, I played a mind-blowing move. Can you guess what it was? I didn't capture the rook on f4. Instead, I played my 5000 elo brilliant move again, bishop takes a5. What a brilliant move! Because if you capture the bishop, the rook's file will be wide open, and the rook itself will be under attack. But I am not interested in your rook, rather, I am interested in sacrificing my pieces because I am Mikhail Tal. After you capture my bishop, the pawn on g5 gets completely open, therefore, I played g6, sacrificing yet another pawn, and if you dare to capture it, I will play rook to g3 check, attacking the king. If the king goes to f7, rook to g7 will win the queen anyway. If the king goes to the h-file, rook to h1 will lead to checkmate in just a few moves, right? So, going back to the position, I discovered that capturing the pawn would be a very bad choice. That's the reason why, after the king moved, I played another sigma male move, g7. Attacking both rooks at once. That's how I play chess. My pawn is attacking two rooks, worth 10 points of material. This is the incredible play of Stockfish 18 beta version. After the rook was captured, we had rook to h1, attacking the rook, and then rook takes a5 on the board. I didn't capture the rook, and you can see that the king cannot go to e7 because rook to f7 is coming. After the knight blocks, we have some exchanges on the board. A few moves later, I captured the queen, and at the end of the day, I had an extra piece in the game. This was a clear win for me. By pushing forward my pawn and playing bishop to f6, the game led to a checkmate. I hope you enjoyed the game very much. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to visit my website ramchis.com as well. Wishing you all the best, bye bye, take care, and see you soon.